This is Commander Nunez reporting from the Challenger Center for Space Science Education in Alexandria, Virginia. On March 18, 2008, NASA astronaut Scott Parazynski gave an exclusive interview to Challenger Center for Space Science Education's founding chairman, Dr. June Scobie-Rogers. This vodcast is part of an exciting new series of Challenger Center interviews with NASA astronauts and other acclaimed scientists and explorers. The goal of the new series is to introduce important role models to children and those young at heart. This interview is also available as a podcast on the Challenger Center website, www.challenger.org. And now for part 2 of the exclusive interview with Scott Parazynski.
Do you remember a little bit about your childhood? Can you tell us about where you went to school?
Sure, yeah. I was very fortunate. I had very adventurous folks, and my parents were also involved in the early space program. My dad was an engineer on the Apollo program, so we lived in New Orleans for a little while when my dad was working on the F-1 rockets that furnished to the moon, and then spent some time in Washington, D.C., where he also supported Apollo. So I had the posters on the wall, model rockets, and it was an incredible time to be a kid and to aspire to be an astronaut, and so I sort of lost track of those dreams. But also, in later years, junior high and high school, we moved overseas. So I spent a couple of years in West Africa, in Dakar, Senegal, which is a real adventure. I learned to speak French reasonably well. We moved to Beirut, Lebanon for a little bit, and then spent my high school years in Athens, Greece, and Tehran, Iran.
You are truly an international qualified astronaut then. In those years, Scott, can you remember a favorite teacher who inspired or encouraged you?
Absolutely. You know, the turning point, well, I had a couple of turning points, but I guess my one that really stands out is Mrs. Bart, a fourth grade teacher. I was a decent student, but she sensed in me potential that wasn't being fulfilled. And so she sensed that I was a little bored, maybe not fully engaged in what was going on. So she challenged me in a way that teachers prior had not, and at that point I became a much better student, much more interested in reading and math and science. And again, in high school, I had an earth science teacher, Mrs. Valoris, when I was in Athens, and she was not easy on me. She challenged me in math and science in a way that others had not. I really decided that I wanted to go to a really good school and pursue math and science and become an astronaut in those years.
What were those your favorite subjects?
I've always enjoyed math and science and relating to technology and exploration, but I love reading as well. Things that are more on the technical side were the things that interested me the most, biology as well.
Where did you choose to go to college?
I went to Stanford University in California. I did my undergraduate there and then stayed on for medical school.
And you majored then in?
I majored in biology when I was at Stanford, and opportunity to work at NASA Ames Research Center, which is at Moffett Field, California, about 20 or 30 minutes away from Stanford. So that was a real opportunity, a real chance for me to merge my long-term interests in becoming a physician and pursuing the space program as well.
Students sometimes are without someone who inspires them or encourages, and sometimes a mentor helps. What would you say to a student who has a vision, a dream like you did in the support system? Where would you advise them to go or what to do?
Some of that was cut off. I think you were talking about finding an advisor if one wasn't readily. We live in an age now where information and locating people is a little bit easier than maybe when I was, going through school. But school is a wonderful thing, and I think at least in the space program, if you're interested in pursuing space or other aspects of science and engineering, you can find people that are working in your area of interest, and it doesn't matter. It could be somewhere around the globe, and you can contact that person ask their opinion. What's the best way for me to get from point A here to point B where you're located, or something totally different. Get advice from an astrophysicist on what that career might be like in 20 years when they're ready to begin their careers. So I think having the information available on the internet, and then also just having the gumption to contact people, I think you'd be really surprised at how willing you are to help out young people.
Good advice. That's most important. So this brings us to the subject of human exploration altogether, all kinds of exploration. Space under the sea, and you are about to embark on a new adventure. Can you tell us about that?
I would love to, yes. I'm 4 days away from departing for Kathmandu and the summit of Mount Everest. It's something that I've also harbored a desire to do. Ever since I was 5 or 6 years old. I read all sorts of accounts of Hillary's and Tenzing Norgay's first ascent of Everest, and since that time I probably have a couple hundred books about Everest and K2 and other big mountains of the world, and so it's a dream come true for me to now have the opportunity to give myself a go at the summit. So I'll be on Everest through the end of May, and hopefully the 2nd to 4th week in May I'll be able to stand on the summit and see what Hillary and Norgay saw back in 1953. It's a dream come true for me.
And like spaceflight, a major team to support efforts like that. Is that right?
Absolutely. Anything that's really challenging and great in life is done as a member of a team. You can't really get to a place like Everest as an individual. It takes people that are alongside you. It takes Sherpa support. We'll have a great team of Sherpas that will help us stock our hike. And I'll actually be climbing with a wonderful guy. His name is Kami Sherpa, and he's actually been to the summit of Everest 8 times and been on 41 major expeditions. So I'm really honored to be able to climb alongside him. Also be climbing with a good friend of mine, Adam Janikowski from Canada, and he'll have a Sherpa with him as well. Angpengba is his name, and then also we'll be climbing under the umbrella of a larger team called IMG. We're also trying to explore the corollaries between space exploration and mountaineering, and there are a lot of similarities. Not only the teamwork aspect of things, but the equipment, the environment, the isolation, the communication, you name it. The total environment is very, very similar on a lot of levels to spaceflight. So we want to reach out to young people through the Challenger Centers and other avenues online so that folks can follow and see what that's like. So we actually have a mission control of sorts back here in the States at the Johnson Space Center and locations that will be posting things on the web so that folks can follow along and see how we're doing and learn a little bit about exploration here on planet Earth.
You will pace yourself. I know that is not easy. We'll be waiting for your return for another conversation, so patients can come home safely, Scott.
Thank you so much, June. Yes, I place safety as my number one priority. I will be using supplemental oxygen. I know my limitations. I've turned back from many summits in the past when the weather wasn't right or didn't feel right, and so I know that the mountain will be there for me another day if it doesn't happen this year.
In the next segment of our premiere podcast, Scott Parazynski takes on the 6 pillars of character.